Hi friends. Happy Wednesday. Happy middle of the week, midweek. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, happy time zone wherever you are, and hopefully wherever you are the weather is okay. I want to say it's a lovely Wednesday, but it's not here. It's really rainy and gloomy, and it's been kind of it's been rainy for the past couple of days. We're under a rainfall warning, which means some areas may get flooded. Thankfully, my area is kind of hilly, so we actually don't get as much rain as some other parts of BC. So, but all the more reason to have a fun, relaxing, stationery based stream, right? We're going to do some painting. We're going to talk about fountain pen inks. We're going to talk about all kinds of stationery, whatever you want to talk about. Chat. It's up to you. So we're just going to hang out like my usual streams and have some fun. But let me just see. Yeah, hurry up, Bailey. I'm kidding. Pop out gal. Gee, how's it going? Happy Wednesday. Oh, you really need the pick me up streams? I really need the pick me up streams. So thanks for being here. I am enjoying spring break. Yeah, the girls are home for a couple of weeks, which is fun. But also, it sort of throws my routine up in the air a little bit. Because I do have to do things with them and get them out of the house and all that stuff. But I wanted to do my stream. I wanted to at least try and keep my schedule a little bit in terms of streaming and just getting some stuff done and hanging out with you all. So, hello, Defense D. How's it going? You're actually ordering lunch too? Yes, that makes sense. I am having my tea because it's 9:30 here, so I'll have my tea, you have your lunch, we'll hang out. Rob, how's it going, friend? You're still on a time zone that works. That works with us, with our stream. No floods, no floods. Just like no tornadoes, please. I'm going to a con and I'm hoping to find good stickers and washi tapes. Awesome. Is that this weekend? I will talk with Mother Nature to tell her to leave you alone. Please. You know what? Rain I'm okay with. Obviously, it's the West Coast. It's to be expected. It's just when it's like a continuous period of rain, right? And it's just gray clouds. The sun doesn't shine through. And you get this sort of, you get light, but it's not the kind of light that, we crave. And so I have all these, lights on in my room, but I wish we had some periods of sun at least. So until next weekend, I do. Okay. That's good to know. But I'm glad you're able to join at least for, for a little bit of time. And thank you to everyone else too. Everyone who's joining. And making time for this stream and making time to be here. So like I said, we're going to do some fountain pen ink painting because that's how I kind of like to spend my Wednesday stream. It's just, it's kind of like it's midweek. We've done some work. We've done, chores, the things that we have to get done. And I feel like sometimes in the middle of the week is the best time to take out stationery that you can sort of focus and sit and mindfully play with. Sometimes at the end of the week, Fridays and even the weekend, I get caught up in having to do family things and I go out and want to enjoy the weekend. And so sometimes it feels a little bit of a challenge to, take out all my inks and sit there and paint with them. I tend to do more like journaling and stuff like that, memory keeping and things on the weekend. And so I feel like midweek is kind of the perfect time to, take everything out, play with it, put it away, and then get on with your week. So glad you're here. And yeah, feel free to chat, throw anything in the chat. If you had a recent acquisition or if you've been to a pen show recently, if you're going to Arkansas or Stationery Fest in SF next week, or if you just came out of a weekend of pen showing or pen meetups, let me know and let us know your acquisition. Let us know, what you're kind of excited about recently. I've been eyeing that Cheshire Cat ink. Yeah, this came up, I think on Monday with Spicy Miso talking about Akibi. And I was like, I will never buy Akibi. Not because I don't love it. It's because I have Cheshire Cat. And I feel like anytime, I'm not typically a mauve or magenta type of person. I like mauve. Magenta is bright. So bright pinks, bright purples. I'm not typically putting that in my fountain pens, even though I love the color. But, you know, writing with it is a whole other experience. But I do love painting with it. And so because I have this bright magenta, which is, I think, one of the best inks, I feel like I'm good. So when Spicy Miso mentioned Akibi on Monday stream, I thought, you know what? I should take out Cheshire Cat again and play with it. And then that led to me taking out the whole Alice in Wonderland line from Wearingeul. And so I thought, you know, let's paint with all 5 inks that are part of the line. And let me just tell you now, this is the only line I have that's a complete sort of set from Wearingeul. And it didn't come, I didn't get it as a set. I initially got Cheshire Cat, Alice, and Mad Hatter because magenta, lovely. Blue, shimmer, very nice. And then I am a sucker for green. I love greens, especially if they're like leafy colors because they're great for painting. They're also a great sort of balance when you're writing. It's not, you know, your typical blue, black, brown. And the next color I tend to lean towards is green. So I got those 3, and then I thought there are 2 other inks in the set. I might as well just get it to complete it. And they turned out to be really nice colors. So yeah, I'll show you the colors. We'll paint with them. 2 of them are shimmer inks, and then the other 3 are standard inks. So they're still all really, really lovely. So we'll take a look. My allergies are still bugging me because it's spring, but not spring. It's fake spring. So allergies don't know that. Yes, we leave tomorrow. Okay. It's not a pen or stationery focus, but I'm having the weaves. You're hoping the weaves will come through. If not, I'm going to New York in April. That's awesome. Which means Yoseka. Yes, for sure. Definitely go there if you can. Take me with you. Yeah, I've been to New York, but before I knew about Yoseka. So sadly, I have not been to Yoseka. This will be my second time going to New York. Also second time going to the specific con. Awesome. That's awesome. Well, I hope you have tons of fun, and I hope you do get to New York. And well, if you are going to New York, I hope you get to Yoseka for sure. Looks like we need to go. Road trip. Hi, Indie Dragonfly. How's it going? How has your week been? Okay, so let's start. Actually have 4 of the inks already in ink vials. So what I typically do with new inks, or if there are inks that I really want to play with, what I do is I put a little bit in an ink vial, number it, and I have a reference sheet that tells me what ink it is. But this way I can have this sitting on my desk, right? I can have a bunch of ink vials sitting on my desk, and it's a reminder for me to play with them. So what I typically do is grab my dip pen, grab my glass dip pen, and grab an ink. And then I just do a little quick floral drawing, or I do a little bit of swatching, play around with the ink for a little bit, and then I move on, and that's it. So if you have a lot of inks and you want to remind yourself to kind of play with it, aside from inking it up in your fountain pens, then that's, one thing you can do is put them into little vials or ink sample vial containers and have them sitting at your desks. Especially if you are like me and you're a visual person. I take visual cues. So if I see something, I'm more likely to use it than remember to use it if it's in my desk drawer or something like that. So for me, a lot of things sit out on my desk or around me just because I'm one of those people that if I don't see it, I tend to forget about it. So a few of these I have in ink vials, so I'm just going to put them onto my paint palette. So the first one is White Rabbit. So these are all Wearingeul. They're all from the same set of Alice in Wonderland inks. And I love these ink bottles because this label does this cool, what's this called? Hologram? I forget now. Words. But yeah, I love that, you know, you get this little play on the character and then the label of the ink. Holograph. Thank you. It's like holo something. Okay. Then we have Cheshire Cat, which if you are into bright colors, especially magenta, pinks, purples, this is one of the inks that I will definitely recommend because it's just really, really pretty. So Cheshire Cat, and then you get the smile of the cat. Very nice. It's a very deep color, and it's nice and vibrant too. So you get that pink color. It's Haley, how's it going? Hi. I love it. Eric Draws did an awesome dragonfly for me yesterday. Oh, that moves? That is amazing, Indy. I love that. You've definitely inspired me to do this. I just need to actually do that. Yeah, I know. I hear you. But once you do it, it's easy upkeep. And also it's one of those, like, you can't leave inks in ink vials forever. Even if you have sample vials, those plastic sample ones. What tends to happen is the moisture starts to evaporate, and so you get a more saturated version of that ink. And sometimes it just evaporates altogether, depending on how long you keep it and where you keep it, of course. If it has access to sunlight and stuff. But the other thing, so it's kind of like if you put them into ink vials, there's also the added, not pressure, but a reminder to use it, because it's not going to stay in these ink vials forever, and you might as well use it up while you can. And so it's kind of like, once you put it in those ink vials, start using it. Start playing with it. Okay, so, Queen of Hearts. I don't think I mentioned that that's what I put in my palette. So Queen of Hearts, you get the Queen. And this one's a shimmer ink. So you'll see it's a very deep shade of, I would say it's a little bit darker probably than the red. Like it's like a dark burgundy maroon color. But then you get gold shimmer. So you can see it on the bottom here. And with Alice, which is what I just put in my palette, it's a really nice blue. And then you get gold shimmer as well. But it is like a bright, fun sort of baby blue color. And then the last ink is Mad Hatter. And this is a really, really nice green. Good afternoon, Jacqueline. How's it going? Lenticular labels, I think. I love that. That's awesome. Also, I learned something. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . When I got back from the con, I have a Jet Pens order I need to place. But now I just need to decide what to get to bring up to free shipping. Yes. Yeah, those little things that you can add in just to hit the free shipping. I think Olive has the most accurate name. Maybe I should use a dip pen in those antique inkwells at the office. Yeah, you definitely should. Just fancy it up. Why not? It's a fun idea, especially if you work with 20-somethings. Yeah, right? Definitely. Make it so fun. They're like, wait, how old are you? Hey, Bailey. Went to get my food, forgot my phone. Oh, no. And now you're eating pretzels. Yeah. But pretzels, I mean, it's kind of a good alternative, but a little disappointing that you couldn't get your lunch. Sorry about that, friend. Yeah, at least you have something to eat. My boss is a 20-something. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, right? All right. Well, Bailey, you made it back in time for me to start painting, so that's a plus. We can distract you from the fact that you have no actual lunch, but you have food, so that's good. So what I'm using for painting, if this is your first stream, I'm Corolla. Hi. On socials, I'm from Corolla. And I like to play with stationery. I like to paint with fountain pen inks and watercolor paints and all sorts of different things. And so that's what we're going to do. For painting, I use the Everyday book, or I'm using currently the Everyday book from Galen Leather. It has Tomoe River Paper, which is fountain pen friendly paper. I was looking at this the other day and I only have like 6 or 7 pages left. And I only use one side of it because I don't mind bleed through or ghosting, or if I add anything else, you know, sometimes I sort of paste in other things, swatches and stuff like that. But yeah, so I only have like 6 or 7 pages left. And then after this, I'm not sure what I'm going to use in terms of a notebook to paint in, because I also have my watercolor sketchbook, but this one's like it's a small version. So I might get a bigger watercolor paper sketchbook for painting, maybe this like a standard or A5 size even, and then keep this as well, because what I like to do is I like to paint on both types of paper and kind of compare and explore that way. But I don't know if I want to continue with TRP or, you know, dig up another notebook that I might have with different kind of paper. It's just meant to kind of, you know, house my paintings and kind of, you know, just play with inks in a notebook. So does it have to be TRP? I don't think so. So I'm kind of thinking about it for now. We'll see. We'll see how we go. Playing with fountain pen inks is the best, isn't it? One way of really using up your inks too. Especially if you don't ink up a lot of fountain pens or often. I'm sure it'll be baffling to most, especially since I'm in IT. Even better. So funny. An IT. Yeah, that would be confusing and also just perplexing. I picked up one of those books at the last journal club. Yes, you do need to start painting in it, Indy. It's just fun. It's just fun. And then the other thing too is you get that, for me, satisfying crinkle. I don't know if you like that sound or that feel of it, but I love, you know, having it gets nice and poofy, right? It's just very satisfying as like a person who likes to finish notebooks or to like feel that a notebook is being used. It just, yeah, it kind of makes me feel good. Okay, so we'll do a little swatch. first I'll paint in this notebook, and then I'll paint in the watercolor sketchbook. And then we'll add a little bit of detail just to make it look a little bit more floral, and then compare how they are. So I'm going to add a little water to this because it was in the ink vial, and I think it might have some of that moisture evaporated. So I think this is sort of a darker version of the actual ink. The actual ink, especially when you're writing with it, is a little bit light. So it's not, to be honest, it's not one of my favorite inks to put into my fountain pens, for sure. Because I'm more of the type of person who likes like really legible writing. I don't have the best eyes, so if I have to kind of, squint to see something, I'm probably not going to use it as much in my fountain pens. So yeah, I haven't really inked this up too much in my pens, but for painting, I love it because it's this really pretty pale pink color, right? So it goes really, really well with some of the darker colors like Cheshire Cat. And it's kind of a gentle, soft sort of color. So Cheshire Cat is a really, really great ink to throw into a pen, especially if you have like a black pen or like a classy sort of, nondescript pen, and you just want that bam, that shot of something really fun and vibrant and bright. I feel like Cheshire Cat is one of those inks. Definitely. But again, personally, I don't write with really bright inks because it can be a little bit much to look at. But every once in a while, or around like in the summer, usually when it's really nice and bright out and sunshiny, I tend to take out some of the brighter inks, and this one is probably one of those that I would reach for. It's just like a really great all-around ink. So and it's great for blending on top of lighter inks as well, because you can see some of that blending happen, mixing. Yeah, it's just really pretty. So I'll move these over here. So yeah, you can see the swatch of White Rabbit is actually a lot more saturated than the ink itself. The color of the ink is just a little bit paler. It says it's good for shading and sheening. Yeah, it is. All right, now we're gonna do Queen of Hearts, which I think I'm gonna add a little bit of water to this because it's definitely gonna be the dark version of this. Queen of Hearts is dark. Oh, yeah. It's not too dark, I don't think, necessarily. But when you're painting, I tend not to use really dark colors just because, yeah, it's just going to look like a blob on the paper. Even if I draw on top of it, it's not going to show too much of that, of the details. So I tend not try and water it down a little bit, or I don't draw too big of a shape because, like I said, otherwise it'll look way too dark. So You'll see. It's a really, really nice reddish, brown, black, burgundy, maroon, sort of in that family. Oh, that was crispy. Ooh, nice. I want to see the Cheshire Cat. I think that's one of the prettiest I've seen lately. Yes. Love the cat. These two colors go together perfectly. They do, don't they? Like, that is a great palette. Right there. And then you throw a dark ink in the mix and you're good to go. You can just stop there and be done. I know. I know, I hear you. These two colors are so good together. They're great. Queen of Hearts is good too. Yeah, it is darker. I think that surprised me because, like, on the box it's red, right? Like, you know, you can sort of say, yeah, maroon. You see some of that brown coming through. But in reality, the ink is actually quite dark. And it has shimmer, so you can see the shimmer come through. So we'll see when it dries. I'll take a look. But in a pen, and I've inked it up before, it comes across really, really dark. And then as you keep writing, you'll get a little bit less saturated and you'll see a little bit more of that like maroon color come through. But it's definitely, I was a little surprised. Not gonna lie. I was a little surprised. All right, so then we have Alice, which is a really nice blue. With shimmer. So I'll leave that there. When it dries, it'll be a little bit lighter. I think it goes, you can sort of see where it's pooling. It looks a little darker. But when it dries, you'll see that it's quite a nice blue. It's not super light. Like, it's still very legible, very, very blue. But it's not as dark, which is nice. I kind of like that. Kind of makes sense for Alice, too. You don't want it to be dark blue. I have to play with similar colors in my journal. Yeah. You don't have any of these. Or you have similar ones. That's all good. Yeah, I also find that there are similar shades to these inks. So, no, you don't need... I may have... Let's see. I think I'm going to take a little bit of this again. Okay, 1 second. I think I put some of the Queen of Hearts in the green by accident, so I don't want to corrupt my inks. Let's try this again. Okay, so this is Mad Hatter. This is a standard green, but it's like a moss green. Let's try this. So it's actually, this is also a little bit different than the box label, I think, because it's kind of a darker gray green. Does that make sense? It's not as bright green as I expected, but just gonna put some here. Reminds me of mud. Now the lighting in here is a little off, but in real life it's pretty close to what you're seeing. But when it dries, I will say when it dries, it'll look a little bit less muddier maybe. It definitely doesn't look like this green. It's just kind of an odd sort of matchup, I think. That the color here is like more leafy green than I would expect, or more leafy green than what I actually see. So let's try this all on watercolor paper, because remember, sometimes I use TRP because in most of my journals and my planners are Tomoe River Paper. So I kind of want an accurate representation of the ink that I'm going to use in my journals, but I like to use these inks on watercolor paper as well, because it sort of allows the ink to shine a little bit more. Sometimes you see properties come through easier, and you can play around with water. So you can add a little bit of water and play around with, a lighter shade and mute them a little bit. So it's kind of fun, but also, we get a little bit more of a look at the inks. I'm so glad I came. I know not to get that ink. Listen, I'm here to enable you, but also I'm here to keep it real. Okay, what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna change out the water, because yeah, don't drink this. Okay, I'll be right back. All right, here we go. We have clean water. These are hard times for us. You know what? And if you look at this ink and you're like, I have a nicer shade of green that I want to use, it's all good. I have done my service to show you the realistic shade. I wish I brought my pens and inks to the office today. Oh no, you forgot them. Oh, yeah, sad panda. Very sad. I know. It's like, I feel like forgetting, like your planner or a pen or whatever. I feel like it's like an emotional support breakdown, right? Because you're like, no, I need it. I need it to get through my day. Okay, so just for Bailey, I have clean water and I'm going to re-swatch the green just because I want to make sure, like I said, it is like an off green. It is more like a mossy sort of olivey kind of green, olive brown. But I just want to make sure I didn't do like a dirty swatch. Yeah. No, it is the green that I remember. It is this green. So, yeah. I look, I like it. I just didn't expect it to be this shade of green based on the box. Okay, so let's leave it at that. And we'll move on. And I kind of felt, like I said, White Rabbit was one of those inks I was excited about because it's this pale pink. And I thought maybe, I know myself, and I know that I'm not a huge fan of inks that are illegible or that are really hard to kind of make out. And so I kind of knew that it was going to be on the paler side. But I think when I inked it up in my pen, and maybe, I need to re-ink it up with like a really juicy, stub kind of variation nib or something. But when I did ink it up in my pen, I was kind of like, this is too pale for me. So again, one of those inks that I know I love to paint with because it's just really, really pretty. It's a really pretty color. Especially because it does remind me of like peonies and like, those gentler kind of flowers. But yeah, when it comes to fountain pens, I don't know. Just adding a little bit of water because I'd like when the ink pools a little bit so you don't get this sort of standard or flat image of the ink. And I like kind of moving it around a little bit, so that's what I'm doing. Try to sneak out a little bit early. I like it. Hi, Needle Girl, how's it going? We are painting with the Wearingeul Alice in Wonderland set because I've had them for a while, and recently I was reminded of Cheshire Cat, and I thought, you know what? I'll just take out the whole set and we'll paint with it and look at all of the different colors. And I have to say, I think of the whole set, Cheshire Cat is still my favorite. It's kind of an all-time favorite ink, to be honest. So, and the other great thing about painting on watercolor paper, of course, is that you can play around with the inks a lot more by blending and adding them and layering them. It just makes it a lot of fun. Add some water and desaturate them a little bit. So you can see what the lighter version of that color would be too. Especially if it's a dark shade, like if you have like a dark pink or dark purple or something like that, painting with it, the little bit of water is just, you know, like this is the version that if it was a lighter color, this is what it would look like. Better than yesterday, the migraine is subsiding. Ugh, migraines. They are the worst. You're dealing with one right now, Papa Gal? I hope it goes away soon. Yeah, they are not fun. Let's see. It's a small positive. I get migraines and I know how bad they suck. Yeah. They are no fun. Just out there, you don't need the mud. You don't need the mud on the page. I love it, Bailey. But I want to muddy it up. Hey, I feel like it does kind of look good in this palette. Just a little bit. We'll add a little bit in the corner. I feel like that a little bit about Queen of Hearts, to be honest. Like, I just don't know how to handle it without it, like, being too much. Like, it's just so dark. So, but I like the shimmer in it. I'm gonna add a little water. I feel like every time I use it, it's just, oh, this is a nice desaturated version. Maybe I'll add a little color there. Yeah, it just goes down like dark. And then you kind of lose, the problem with inks like that are really dark like this is that you kind of lose the color. Right? It's just so dark. It pulls in the black aspect. So I'm just gonna dab this a little bit. And so when you look at it, it's just like, you see black. It's like, it's a black ink. Let's move on. But it is like a really, really nice, you know, you do get those nice burgundy maroon shades in there, and I don't want to lose that because I do like dark red tones. Like a red black is nice if you can get that underlying red to show, then I'm a fan. But if it's just like so, you know, so dark that you might as well be using a black ink, then, or you have to write for like pages before you start to get some of that red coming through. I don't know. But like this version is really nice, I think. Like I can do this, I can do that, where you can kind of see that coming through. But you know, when it's like this and it's just like a saturated, like, yeah. And again, it doesn't look like the label, so it's a little, you know, it's a little darker than I would have liked, I think. But let's get muddy. Let's get muddy. The ink looks beautiful on the watercolor paper. Yeah, I know it's, sometimes it does differ, right? And the thing is, you're not using your fountain pens on watercolor paper. You're not writing on watercolor paper. So to have it show like really nicely on here is fine for painting. But in reality, you know, unless you're going to, you know, do a lot of this kind of painting exercise or playing with inks and stuff, which you should, A lot of times it's like it doesn't cross over to using it on, TRP or Midori paper and stuff. My humor and snarkiness is running wild today. No, we like it. VH2D, thanks so much for the follow. Appreciate you. No, Bailey, we appreciate your humor. It's good. I love that sarcasm, I get it. Some of the job loss stress is easing. Aw. I hope you're doing okay, friend. Sending hugs. We're here for you. And we're here to bring you mud. All right. And then we have Alice. So let me just get my... This is our nice, lovely blue. Sticks out a little bit in this, like when you're kind of painting them together, or if you're using a palette with all the colors, it kind of sticks out a little bit, like, whoa, what's this blue doing here? But I think the shade of it goes really well with everything else. I mean, Cheshire Cat will always stand out, right? There's no getting around that. But the blue is kind of nice and it sort of brings it down a little bit. So you don't have all the pinks, reds, magenta kind of out of control. I feel like the blue is a little grounding in that way. Just gonna throw it in here a little bit randomly. We'll see what it does. All right. I might enjoy the mud colors again come the fall. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Maybe you're in spring mode, which I'm there too. I kind of enjoy the spring colors now and the spring shades. Like let's move away from earthy, brown tones and all those ones, but let's move on to the nice pastel shades, I think. I'll take the hugs, just not the mud. No muddy hugs. Sorry, I brought both. It's all I see right now with some snow melt. Ooh, yeah. And your dog loves to dig. Yeah, snow is lovely when it falls. But as soon as it hits the ground, you're like, ugh. Because it's going to get the, just slushy, gross. I can see why you don't want the mud. Yeah. That's why. But you know what, Bailey? Just for you, we're going to add a little bit in. Here comes the mud. Yeah, I don't think it looks, well, let's see when it dries, but I don't think it looks that much different on watercolor paper. I think we still kind of have that, earthy, green. So this is Mad Hatter green. Which incidentally is Bailey's favorite. I guess it's a little lighter. Maybe I don't think I put too much water on here. Let's try. Yeah. Let's see when it dries. It does seem lighter, right? Yeah, it looks a little bit more sage. Yeah, I agree. So let's see when it dries, but even the pools, they're drying a little lighter than what we initially saw. So, all right, let's let that dry. I think on TRP too, it flattens the color a little bit, right? Especially if it's a standard color. And so you get less of that like green vibe or the green layers of the color coming through. It just kind of dries and then you get more of this like gray mud. More of like a green gray. It's like a dried leaf or something color, right? Like you're drying your leaves and this is what it looks like afterwards because you tend to lose that like fresh green shade of it. Anyway, I think it's all dry. Oh, some of the blue is still wet. But you see a little bit of the shimmers coming through now. A little bit of gold in the Queen of Hearts, the red. And then the blue too. It's still drying, but you can see some of the gold coming through. So that's quite nice. And then in the swatch too. I feel like Cheshire Cat is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this palette. Which maybe, you know, makes sense. It's on brand. I still like the colors on TRP. Yeah. Like overall, right? When you look at it as sort of like all of them working together, I think they do. Like I think they all sort of work together really well. Especially like I said, the blue is kind of like the surprising element where you're like, oh yeah, that's different, and yet the shade of it works with the brightness and the pale pink as well. So it is a fun palette in that way. Overall, they look really great together, I think. But it's one when you sort of pick out, like, do you actually like this shade of, you know, blue or pink or whatever? That's when you kind of have to, maybe you don't need the whole set, especially to ink up your pens. I'm ready for companies to start putting out some spring and summer ink colors. Yeah, even the newest ones Wearingeul put out are more neutral. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think the more recent inks have been sort of in line with, like, you know, what I would tend to use in the fall or winter. Maybe not so much in the spring and summer, but hopefully we get there. I do like to, even though I tend to use a lot of darker colors in my pens, and I don't necessarily buy inks just to paint with, right? Like, as much as I love painting with inks, my initial thought is, would I put this in a pen? And then painting is kind of like, if I do find an ink, something like White Rabbit, where I'm like, nah, I'm not a huge fan of it in a pen, but I love the color, I love the shade, and it's a great balance to some of the darker colors that I use. And so I tend to, you know, either I paint with it or I use it with a dip pen. And so you can add like a little bit more color with your, you know, with your dip pen. But yeah, I do like when there are like bright inks, vibrant inks, because it's a great, like, if you're, you know, if you have an ink collection, then it's kind of nice to have a balance of those dark, earthy tones, especially, you know, for writing purpose, if you're into that. But also have, you know, really bright and fun colors to choose from if you want to. especially if you're a seasonal person like me who likes to use those bright, vibrant colors in the summer, spring and summer, right? Okay, I think it was just the blue that took a little time to dry because some of that shimmer takes a little bit of time, but most of it is dry, so we're good. All right. Let's move some of this stuff so I can get out my ink. So what I do after I paint with inks is I like to add a little bit of detail on top just to make it look a little bit more like a floral bouquet, or, you know, just have some close off some of those shapes so that it's easy to look at this and know where to look and what you're seeing. And so I like doing that, and I typically use a dip nib. This one is the Kakimori stainless steel, and I use a pigment ink. This is the Kakimori black pigment ink. And the reason why I tend to prefer using a pigment ink for doing the line drawings on top is that because a pigment ink will sit on top of your layers of other inks, but it will still be vibrant. It will stand out. It'll be dark, and it won't just kind of blend into the ink that you have underneath. So also I find it's just a little bit easier to draw with, because you don't have to put a lot of it down to see it. And it sticks to your nib as well. So you don't have too much of it pooling. But I love using this kind of nib because I can angle it in different ways to get, you know, more ink or less ink on the paper. And with something like this, where I'm using some of these light colors and also blending in some colors, I don't like to put a lot of black ink down on top of that because it will, you know, detract from what you have going on underneath. And I mean, the ink that we're playing with is what we want to focus on, right? It's a star. It's a star of this piece. So I don't want to take away from that. But I do want to add a little bit of detail so that it looks a little bit more like what I actually intended it to look like. Annabelle Lee, Red Shoes and Crime and Punishment. Annabelle is like Alice with shimmer. Red shoes looks like what Queen of Hearts should have been. Yes, you're right. And the Crime and Punishment is a dark green. Yeah, the red shoes. I agree. So yeah, it's a little harder to see the black on top of like a dark maroon or red. But with painting, you can kind of move that ink around a little bit so that you get, less of that sort of blobby look. But still, it's a little tricky. It's a little tricky with darker inks. So this is definitely a saturated swatch of White Rabbit. That's okay. That's right. So which one are you more likely? Which ink of these are you more likely to get or use? You don't have to get any of them. I'm not telling you to buy them, but which one are you more likely to use? And I know Bailey's going to say Mad Hatter for sure. Pop out, gal. I mean, ob. VHTD, Queen of Hearts reminds me of KWZ brown ink, brown pink, at least on my screen. Yeah. Brown pink. I have a KWZ. Oh, hold on one sec. Oh. That's so funny that you said that because I have a sample of it. And I thought, you know what? I agree. It does look very similar. But we can swatch it if you want. We can see. Honestly, White Rabbit, because of how unique it is, yeah. It's definitely one of those colors that's like really nice. Did you see Sailor put out center dipped in inks? Oh, no, I didn't. I need to look into that. Yeah, Cheshire Cat. I agree, Sandy. No, Paw Paw Gal, you really like Mad Hatter. It's okay. We're not going to judge you. I mean, Bailey might judge you, but I'm kidding. Yeah, Cheshire Cat is one of those, like, common. I think it's more sort of one of those, like, people will be drawn to it because it's bright, it's fun, it's, a really nice shade. But yeah, Bailey's right. White Rabbit is one of those colors and shades that's, like, just, really interesting and very pretty. It's a lovely color. And if you're into bright blues, especially shimmer inks, Alice is a good one. But when it comes to blues, you can find a lot of these sort of really bright, fun blues for sure. I've been on a Diamine Zugma kick in my pens, especially broads. Oh, interesting. No, I have no right to judge. I'm a hot mess. It's okay. All with love. We don't judge. I'm just kidding. You like what you like. It is totally fine. Now this is interesting. I tend to do this with watercolor paper is I like to mix and blend a little bit more. You'll see that with all of my paintings. Because TRP it's fountain pen friendly, but there's, for me at least, I feel like there's a limit to how much layering and how much mixing you can actually do on paper. And before it just takes so long to dry, or it starts to really bleed through, which this is actually not bad at all. Right, so I kind of like to be on the, take a little caution and just do a little bit of blending and mixing. But then on watercolor paper, all bets are off because it's watercolor paper and you have no issues with, using a ton of ink or water, except for that, yeah, it will take time to dry. So depending on how much you want to wait. But I kind of love just playing around with seeing what you get when you mix those ink a little bit, blend the inks a little bit. And then they do tend to pool together because, if you have a water pool or an ink pool and you add ink close by and it sort of drifts into the next pool of ink, it will mix. So just be aware of that. But I kind of find it fun. So this piece is not an accurate representation of what the inks look like when you're painting with them per se. But the swatches are, this is what they would look like on watercolor paper. So compare this, this to this, right? They're pretty close, if not, very similar. Maybe you see a little bit more, like I said, TRP tends to flatten the colors a little bit. Whereas on watercolor paper, because it takes longer to dry, because it can absorb a lot more, I tend to see a lot more of the properties of inks on watercolor paper, which is really nice. And so, when it dries, you'll find that on watercolor paper, it's a lot more vibrant, just because it sort of brings out the ink properties. It lets it kind of pop. So it's also fun. I could use more pen and inky friends in my life. Of course. Of course. Thank you, Bailey. Let's take a look. Let me see if I can share. Whoa! Extreme sheen. Look at that. Wow, how have I not heard of this? Oh, it's a exclusive. That is so cool. It contains no shimmer particles. Rich and dynamic color, yeah. Very cool. Shading, sheen, shimmer. Dry time 35 seconds. I love it. So you'll be waiting. That's not actually too bad. For an extreme sheener, like sometimes I've used sheening inks that just do not dry. I feel like it takes hours, if not days. So that's actually fine. That's so funny. Extreme sheener. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, the colors are so vibrant on the watercolor paper. That's why I like to use them on here because, like I said, even if it's not necessarily the ink color that you'll get from putting it in a pen, unless you're writing on watercolor paper, still, it's kind of a fun way to explore what the ink capability is, right? Like what kind of properties does that ink have? And I feel like for me, it makes me appreciate it a little bit more where, if you ink up a pen, you write with it, you just see what you see using that pen. But when you're painting with it, especially on different types of paper, you tend to see a little bit more behind it. And yeah, you may not see it in your written content, but it's still a fun way of appreciating your inks and pushing them a little bit more. Like push them a little, right? Seriously, the best company. The best. And I think Brad, the Pen Addict, is supposed to stream at 11 my time, so 2 Eastern. So we'll raid his stream when he comes on. So someone tell me. Someone tell me when he goes live. This is not completely dry, but I think we'll be okay. Just blotting it. Oh yeah. So normally I wait until the ink dries before I draw on top of it. But in light of time, sometimes I use a blotter. So we don't always have time to wait. But also on watercolor paper, when I do a little bit of drawing on top, I don't add too much pigment ink because it stands out a lot. And so I really don't want to draw over the colors and where the colors are kind of blending. But sometimes, you know, if there's like a blob happening, then you can just kind of break it up into petals and make it look more like a flower than a blob. Other times I kind of let it be whatever shape it turned out to be. Like this did a lot of mixing, so I'm not sure what happened here, but it's all good. Also, because watercolor paper is textured, you tend to feel the feedback when you use a dip nib, any kind of dip nib. Sometimes it catches a little bit too, depending on the angle and how fast you're using it, how fast you're going. So I tend to sort of be a little bit lighter when I hold my dip nib. Because you can kind of hear it too, like it's sort of not scratchy, but it is moving on textured paper, so it's not always smooth, unlike TRP. I'm just going to do swatch boxes, and I think I'll leave it at that. Yeah. So let's see, where do I have? Let me do it on here, I think. Okay, so this is pretty dry, I think. And then here is, so this is on TRP, this is on watercolor paper, and you can very easily see the difference between the two paper types, and what the inks would look like on both types. So even though I do really like the ink on TRP, It's very fun to see it, stand out so much on watercolor paper. And even, the muddy green Mad Hatter looks slightly different, right, on watercolor paper than it does on TRP. And that might not make a difference, when you're using a fountain pen, but when you're exploring inks, it's very interesting to kind of compare and contrast those little subtle, subtleties between the paper and what, watercolor paper tends to bring out, especially when you're adding a little bit of water to extend the ink a little bit. I don't know. I feel like it just makes me appreciate them and also see them in a different light, where it's kind of like, they can look slightly different. You can see a little bit more of the properties. Just kind of fun. It's very vibrant on watercolor. Yeah, exactly. I love it too. Yeah, any plans for the week? I have none, and I'm okay with that. I don't think I'm doing anything big, but I do have to take my girls to Michael's because I have twins, and one of them does crochet, and she learned it from my niece, who's really good at crocheting. But she's been practicing, and now my other twin, of course, has decided that she also wants to crochet, and so it's kind of cute watching, them learn from each other and teach and stuff like that. But also it means that I have to buy them things. So I have to go out and get yarn with them, which is really funny because I'm like, here I am spending, on inks and paper and pens and stuff like that. And they're just like, I want yarn. I don't crochet. I don't. Not that I don't want to learn or anything like that, but I did get into embroidery and I really enjoyed that. And I think I am more of like a needle and thread type of person versus like hooks and yarn and stuff. So it is very cute. I'm letting this be their thing. So yeah, do something creative, do something fun. I'm all for it. Though I kind of wish that I knew how to crochet because then I could, really teach them a little bit more. But for me, it would be like starting from scratch. Yeah, I feel like a lot of us who are into stationery also tend to have like other hobbies that are similar or artsy or crafty or adjacent to stationery. And it's very interesting when I find out, people who are like, oh yeah, I love to knit, or, I love to do this or that, or photography and whatever else. And it's like, of course you do. You're a creative person, right? Like if you sort of push your stationery in a way that you're really enjoying it and experiencing the creativity of it, of course you have something else that you're probably doing, right? My dexterity sucks and I can't get the hang of it. So funny. I know. All right, let me just... Yeah, it is kind of funny to sometimes too. It's like it's easy to learn one thing, but it's really hard to learn something else. I just, sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't. And I feel like I'm not gonna force myself to, to try and learn something that just doesn't stick. Like what? We're collectors of hobbies and things. Yeah, we collect. And some of us more than others probably too, we tend to jump from hobby to hobby sometimes. And I feel like stationery is one of those things that has stuck. Especially inks and paints and stuff like that. So drawing, painting, etc. But adjacent hobbies sometimes, you have to make time for them too. And I feel like because we're limited on how much time we sort of spend on our hobbies, it kind of comes down to, which one are you naturally kind of drawn to do. Even if you get inky hands and you drop ink and you make a mess and, um, you know, yet it's still fun. Yet we keep doing it over and over to ourselves. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. I told my husband I want to start collecting something. He looked at me crazy. He said, "You already are." Yes. You already are. That's so funny. What did you think you were doing with all those inks? Right? That's too funny. Typewriters rock. Yeah. Oh yeah, Derek. You're a typewriter person too. Glad that my wife is supportive of my recent new collection of typewriters. Yeah, you have quite a few really nice typewriters, and you use them, right? I have one there, and yeah, I cleaned it and all that stuff, so it works. And I got it like 3 or 4 years ago, I think. But I haven't been using it recently. And so I know every time, Derek, you use your typewriters in your lives or you post about them, I'm like, yes, I should use it again. They are fun. 14. That's amazing. I love that. I started doing typewriter journaling the other day. Yeah, that's what I want to use it for. And just write out like little notes you can add into your journal too. I still need to fix some mine. Maybe now yeah. You will have time, Bailey, and I feel like you need the goals. So if you want to fix up your typewriter, or if you want to sort of aim to, like, I'm going to fix it up, I'm going to use it, and then I'm going to, use it for journaling or something. I feel like having that kind of goal, something to work towards, gives yourself a little bit of a purpose with that stationary item. So we're gonna ask you about it. Type it out and then glue washi tape into a journal. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I know it's a great way of adding interest. It's a great way of using your stationary tools like supplies and stuff like that, adding some interest. And also, like, if you are into the vintage vibe, right? Like Deep Ends D using, vintage inks and an inkwell. If you're into that vibe, that look, it just kind of like, I don't know, it steps it up a little bit. Like you're leveling up, right? When you're using like a physical, like, of course you can use a typewriter font on your computer and print it out, stick it in, all good. But when you're physically using a typewriter to type something up, it's like, it's that added level of like, oh, it does have a legit vintage feel to it. I have my vintage desk now, so I need to fix it up so I can use it on there. Yes, exactly. Can you imagine how cool that vibe would be? You're using a typewriter on your vintage desk. I feel like that would just like, that would take you back. I don't know. It would put you in that like, yeah, that mood to use that. I think Brad went live. So we'll go over there in a second. So starting soon. Screen. But before I hop over, yeah, thanks so much for joining. I had so much fun exploring these inks, just because, You know, even though it's a set, I don't tend to ink up my pens in a set. You know, it's just whenever I kind of feel like a color. And usually it's a Cheshire Cat or something like that. So it's kind of nice to take out, when they do a set, it's meant to be a palette, right? And so it's kind of nice to take out inks that work really well together, or that are meant to kind of work together in terms of the shades and the colors. And it's, you know, a nice reminder of the different types of inks, how they can sort of blend and mix and look really good together. So I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining me. Next time I'll be on Monday. So same time, same place. Actually, it'll probably be 9:30. Usually I stream around 9. But with the kids home, I do a little bit of a later stream. So probably be 9:30 Pacific. And we'll do some journaling. We'll switch it up again. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, if you're watching the replay, thank you so much. I appreciate you all. Have so much fun. Have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Make sure you go play with stationery. Make some time for it.